This is, I think well, now the slides are better. I will not have to explain much, but the idea was to try to tell you what we are doing in Argentina and see what similarities we have with the situation that you have in Arizona. And I wanted to start with this map. This is a map of the American continent where you can see the US, Mexico, and here is Argentina. So we are very far away, but we are united by this incredible cat, the jaguar, that its past distribution went from the southern United States to central Argentina. Actually, from the Colorado River in the United States up to the Colorado River north of Patagonia. So from Colorado to Colorado, yeah. But we are also united by the tragedy of losing or almost losing the jaguar. So as you can see, well, now you don't have breeding populations in the northern part of its range. And in Argentina, it's even worse. We lost more than 95% of the original distribution of the jaguar in the country. It only remains on these dark green spots. You see in many places like isolated islands of jaguars. But in our case, we were very lucky to also share with you this couple that are Doug and Chris Tompkins. Maybe you heard about them. That late in the 90s, they arrived to Argentina. They were already in Chile. And they arrived to northeastern Argentina, here in this province, Corrientes, where we have like a big wetland that is Iberá, where the biggest part of these stories takes place. And they came with very strong values and very bold ideas, or crazy ideas also, I would say. They wanted to bring back the jaguar to Argentina. So a country in which never a reintroduction project was conducted. So we need to figure out how to do that. And when we were just starting, Doug, sadly, he passed away at the end of 2015. And then Chris, like she started to retire a little bit. So if we wanted to continue, we had to become independent. So that's when Rewilding Argentina was born, yeah? And when we were born, we only had the reintroduction center and one female jaguar. So we needed to like figure out how to continue to bring back the big feline. So one of the things that we did is we defined our mission, yeah? That we are very much committed in trying to stop and reverse the wildlife extinction crisis that I think is the mother of the environmental crisis that we are facing today. And how we do that, we try to restore complete and fully functional ecosystems through an ecological restoration strategy that is rewilding. So now that's our like mission, long-term mission, maybe kind of utopic. And how we do that on our daily work, we try to build in different territories of Argentina, including Iberá, local restorative economies that in order to thrive, they need of this complete and fully functional ecosystem. So when the ecosystems are doing well, the economy is doing well, and vice versa. When the economy is doing well, so do the ecosystems. So our daily work is like an economic approach into conservation with local communities. So I want to explain just a little bit before we enter with the jaguar, what is for us a complete and functional ecosystem. So this is a drawing of Iberá, and this is how Iberá is looking like now. But 20 years ago, when the Tompkins came to Argentina, we didn't have the jaguar, we didn't have the collared peccaries, or the bare-faced curassow, or the macaw, or the giant anteater, or the giant otter. They were all extinct, yeah, gone from Iberá. So Iberá was not a complete ecosystem. There were many species that used to inhabit Iberá in historic times, like 200 years ago or less, that were completely gone. So we wanted to bring them back. But we don't also want to bring them back. We want to have them in numbers big enough so they fulfill their ecological role in the ecosystem. This is a male in El Impenetrable, another place where we are working in northern Argentina. And until a couple of years ago, it was the only male in that entire region of Argentina, in the Gran Chaco. This is like our El Jefe. He's a very big male. We captured him in 2019 for the first time. He's 114 kilos, so it's very big, massive. Actually, the biggest jaguar that was ever caught in Argentina. And he was alone, completely alone. So the jaguar was present in this dry forest of the Chaco region in Argentina, but just one individual is not enough. So the ecological role of the jaguar was not there. So we not only want to have the jaguars, but we want to have many. So they fulfill the ecological role in the ecosystem. So that is the theory, but then I wanted to show you how we work in order to bring back the jaguar in Argentina. That is not only technical work, but mostly socio-political work. So we have like a model of 4 parts that we run on the territory every day, our staffs in different regions of Argentina. I will talk about Iberá. And the first part of the model is the territory. We need an area in which we want to bring back the jaguar. So what we do? We fundraise. Most of our donors are from the US, so thank you very much. So we buy cattle ranches, and then almost since the first day that we buy those cattle ranches, we open them to the public. It's very important in our model to have public access and invest in public access infrastructure to facilitate the entrance of people, of tourists on that area. So that way, this land that at the end we will donate to the government to set national parks, they will become engines for local development and job creation. That is our model. So in Iberá, we are working for 20 years now, or more than 20 years. We work together with the government of Argentina, and we created the largest natural park, category 2 of IUCN, in Argentina, that is the Iberá Park of 1.8, almost 1.9 million acres. So it's a big place, where we can think about bringing back the jaguar. So sometimes you need big territories. If as bigger, better. But sometimes you can do it also not in so big territories. And then that park, and something that is very important for our model, it becomes a nature tourism destination. So we choose like a nice name for all the places where we work. This is Iberá. Iberá means shining water in Guarani language. It's a wetland. It's like Pantanal, like a very big wetland. So the name of the park will become an umbrella name of all the activities that will be developed under this model of this local restorative economy. I will explain more about that. Once we have the territory, then it comes the second part of the model, that is the wildlife. So when we get these territories, we get rid of threats. Threats are mostly in these places cattle that sometimes overgraze these places. Also, at least in Argentina, cattle comes a lot with dogs for managing the cows that are a threat for wildlife. With fires, they put a lot of fires, fences that interrupt movement, and sometimes also poaching. The people that work in cattle ranches, they hunt many species. So some species that were there but in very low numbers, they start to thrive again. Like for example, in Iberá, the marsh deers that were very rare but now are very common. The capybara is another example, the main prey of the jaguar in Iberá. The caimans, they came back when we get rid of threats. The Maine wolf, that is the largest canid in South America, is like a very tall wolf. But there are some other species that went completely gone and they cannot come back by themselves. And for those, we run reintroduction projects. So in Iberá, we are running, we started in 2007 bringing back the giant anteater that was completely extinct. So the giant anteater now has very healthy populations in Iberá, actually is dispersing outside the park. Even they crossed one big river and they appear in Brazil in a state that is called Rio Grande do Sul, where they went extinct 130 years ago. And that is part of the dispersion of the Iberá population. We are bringing back the pampas deer, a very endangered species of the grasslands of Argentina. We are bringing back the collared peccary, your jabalina, that went extinct there. So by doing that also we recover the prey base for the big predator, yeah, for the jaguar. We also bring in some species of bird like the red and green macaw or the bare-faced curassow, a chicken-like bird similar to your turkey, that are big fruit eaters and seed dispersers. They have a very important role in the regeneration of forests. We are also running reintroduction projects for the ocelot, a carnivore, and then the giant otter, a species that went completely extinct in Argentina, is the biggest of the otter in the world. And of course, we are working in the reintroduction of jaguars. And I will open like a parenthesis to go out of this, of explaining the model and tell you a little bit more how we work with the jaguar. So we started with the jaguar in 2012. It was impossible to start reintroducing the jaguar since the beginning because people were like, especially sometimes the officers of the government, they were kind of scared. So that's why we started with other species to build a reputation, to have some success, and then start with the big cat. So now in Iberá, we will see that after 70 years of extinction, we started to work in the reintroduction in 2012. We released the first jaguars in January 2021, 4 years ago. And now we have a breeding population of jaguars in Iberá of 35 to 40 animals. So it's a very big success. So we started from zero here, a worse situation that you have here in Arizona, New Mexico, and northern Mexico. And then we started another reintroduction project that was really a supplementation project that I am going to talk a little bit also, that is the Impenetrable project. And there we had some solitary males that you have here. And there it was not really a reintroduction project, but a supplementation project in which we release females for those solitary males. So how we started? We built a very big reintroduction center there. Yeah, we started in 2012. It was 2 years working in building this center in the core area of Iberá. So it was very hard to bring all these materials in, sometimes by boat, sometimes using oxes because there was so much water. And we got a center that has some very big pens like these ones that we see here. So we have some small pens, kind of small, not so small, but in comparison they are small pens. And there we bring breeders from captivity, captive jaguars. So we started to ask different zoos and rescue centers, please send the females and males that you have so we can breed them. So that's how we started to get breeders. So you see one there in a platform. So this is one of the small pens. They have very nice view in Iberá. This is a sunset. This is a breeder that comes from captivity, an animal that we will never release. Why? Many people think because they cannot hunt, but really they learn how to hunt. Even if they didn't see a wild prey in their life, a live prey, they can learn how to hunt. But the problem with these ones is that they relate us with food provision. So they are not afraid of humans, and you cannot get rid of that. So we only use them to breed, but never to release them. But when a female gets pregnant, what we do is we move the females to these big enclosures. Yeah, and in these big enclosures, they are going to give birth. Yeah, so we get calves like these ones some years ago, and these calves are going to grow with the mother without human contact. So what we do is we monitor these pens from far away using cameras, video surveillance cameras. So this is our biological station 4 kilometers away from the reintroduction center. So they don't see us, or at least sometimes they see us, but they don't see us giving them food. That is the behavior that you don't want. it's not bad that they see you and they are kind of afraid or a neutral, like neutral link. But the important thing is that we enter to those pens live prey without them noticing that it's us entering the live prey. So for example, a capybara, like this one that they are killing, this is inside one of the pens. So the mother hunts the prey for the cubs, and that's how the cubs grow. And then they start to learn from the mother how to hunt prey. And the cubs are the ones that we will be able to release, never the mother. So when the cubs are like 1 year old, we call the mother back because she's very used to the sound of a whistle, so that she responds to when she's hungry. So, and then the cubs continue, the juveniles now that they 1 year old, they continue by their own hunting in this big pen. Sometimes jaguars usually they have 2 cubs, and when these 2 cubs are female and male, when they are 2 years old, we separate them so they don't breed between brothers and sisters. And then when they are like 3 years old, or maybe less, we move them to a much bigger enclosure that you can see here. This is 76 acres enclosure, and they stay here like 2-3 months. Here there's not a need to enter live prey because the prey is already there. And then we open a gate that is here, and when they want, they leave. Yeah, it's a very soft release. So that's how we manage at the beginning to have jaguars to release in the reintroduction project of Iberá. At the beginning, the captive animals, they came from Argentina. Then some years later, we were able to import jaguars from Uruguay, Brazil, and Paraguay, captive jaguars. That when we started, it was like impossible to think about that. But then you are like moving forward, and some things that seemed to be impossible, then they become real. And I wanted to show you how we work in El Impenetrable. So again, this is our El Jefe. So in El Impenetrable, we had the males, the wild males, to use them as breeders, but we didn't have the females. So we brought captive females, and for when you bring a captive female in a place that you only have males, the males will appear like that. Because, yeah, exactly. So they find the females really soon, yeah? So that's how we were able to capture him and put a collar in 2019. We are keeping monitoring him. I will talk about that later, but when you collar a jaguar, the world changes completely. You have so much information, ecological information, but also very useful information to take care of the jaguar, to protect them. So you will see this video, how they interact. And when the interaction is good, the female is in the heat period there. So we think it will be possible to put them together for a while, so to see if the female gets pregnant. So how we did that is then this small pen where the female is a small pen, so he's able to see her very easy. It has another big pen of 4.5 acres, yeah? So then what we did is we cover this with sticks so they cannot see them anymore. So if he wants to see the female, he has to enter through a passage to the big pen and see her from inside. So that's how we managed to like put him inside a big pen. And you will see how he enters and then a guillotine goes like down. So this is the sticks, see? And then he jumps, and when he goes down, he activates the guillotine. So now he's inside. And once he's inside, we did this many times until we confirmed that he's kind of relaxed. When he's inside, then we release the female. And they stay there like for 1 week until the heat period ends. So they have a really good time. Look at the difference in size. This male is so big. So they spend like 1 week inside that big pen mating. And then we release, how we separate them is we don't feed them during this 6 days period, so they are hungry. And then again, we call the female with a whistle, and we can put, because she relates the sound of the whistle with food. So she's hungry after having I don't know, like a nice time for 6 days. So she comes again to the small pen. We put her there, and then we open the guillotine, and he leaves. Very relaxed also. And the female got pregnant like that. And then we had 2 calves. At the end, with this male, we managed to have 7 different calves using the same system. So you can start breeding also wild males with captive female. That is something that maybe you can do here. And then we move forward, and something that at the beginning seemed kind of impossible started to appear, is that we started to bring wild jaguars from Brazil and from Paraguay. Wild jaguars, but for some reason they ended in captivity. Some of them were orphans, or some of them were in very bad conditions. They went to a rescue center, and we brought them very soon, and they went directly to the big pens, like to do a rehabilitation and adaptation process, and then we released them. And this is much faster than breeding jaguars in captivity. So to breed jaguars in captivity, in order to release them, it can take 4 years. This, to do the paperwork and everything, it will take maybe 1 year. And then we also move forward, and since the Iberá population now is thriving, we are able to harvest jaguars from there and do wild-to-wild translocations, something that was never done with jaguars before. So now we are capturing some wild jaguars that were born wild in Iberá, in a place where we didn't have jaguars until 4 years ago. And we are moving those wild jaguars to El Impenetrable to supplement the population with more females. So to capture and move a wild jaguar and then release it, it takes like 4 months, comparing with breeding a jaguar that it takes 4 years. You can do many of these things, but this is very much efficient, yeah, and not so expensive, and yeah. So, and then what we do is we release all the jaguars with collars. We monitor them using a VHF signal, or the collar also collects GPS points that every day they send those points with the location of the jaguars to our computers. So that's how we monitor them. I'm going to show you a video that we did at the end of 2020, when we were going to start to release jaguars, like saying, we are ready, this will happen soon. So you can see some of the things that I explained. Okay, so these are some things that we learned during this process that maybe some of these are kind of useful to you. One thing is, of course, jaguars can be reintroduced. Maybe the letters are small, but I will read it. Jaguars can be reintroduced. Iberá is the first reintroduction project of jaguars in the world, and really the only one also. So jaguars can be reintroduced. A jaguar population can be supplemented with females, like we are doing in El Impenetrable. So you can start from 0, or you can start with a few males. One of the other lessons is you can breed jaguars, individual jaguars, that then can be released, yeah, something that was never done also before. Then also another important thing is you can do wild-to-wild translocations of jaguars. You can get a wild jaguar from one place and release it in another one. Another thing is, I will not talk a lot about that, but we are monitoring the genetic diversity of the population, because in this project, usually you start with very few individuals, so you may have the problem of inbreeding, but the variability of the jaguar population in Iberá is really high, the genetic variability. You can download the technical documents from our webpage. There are no big genetic differences in jaguars from the US up to Argentina. They are the same species, they are the same subspecies. Yes, there are, of course, some genetic differences that you need to observe, but they are not big. It's not like you need to have if you want to reintroduce jaguars in the US, you need a source of animals from the same US or the other side of the border in Mexico. You can explore a little bit further. Another thing is that an individual translocated jaguar can adapt to different environments. We brought, for example, wild jaguars from the Amazon basin in Brazil, that is a tropical rainforest, and we released them in a subtropical grassland like in Iberá, and they are doing great. Yeah, so you can change environments working with the adaptation of the animals, of course. And then another thing that is very important is that when you collar a jaguar, you get a source of information that changes everything. Yeah, so not only you get to know where the animals move, if they disperse, which corridors they are using, or if they go away from the park, which, for example, private ranches they are using, cattle ranches, so you can work on the coexistence with that rancher. Or if you want to buy land to expand the reserve, maybe you should look at those land acquisitions as a priority. And then it gives visibility to the animals. So we say that it's like it moves the authorities to protect them. So when we share the information of the jaguars with the authorities, so when the collared animals, they go to a place that we know there are some kind of threat, we tell the authority to go there. Rangers, rural police, any other authority to take care of the jaguars. Because if jaguars have no collar and someone kills one, nobody cares, because nobody knows about that. But if one of these jaguars that everybody knows by name is get killed, it's like a scandal. So it helps a lot in protecting jaguars to have them with collars beside the information that you get. So now let's close the parentheses and let's go back to the model. Yeah, remember the territory open to the public with public use infrastructure, and then the wildlife that is returning, the second part of the model. So our impact in Iberá, we are introducing 10 different species, including the jaguar. And then, because this is important to tell you how we convince authorities in Argentina to bring back the jaguar, how we get the permits. That, as I always say, we've been talking a lot about this. All this the technical aspect that we just talked, like breeding jaguar, the genetics, monitoring them, is the same everywhere. I mean, what we did in Argentina, I think you can extrapolate here or to any other place of jaguar distribution. But then how you convince politicians or the society, that changes a lot. And I cannot give you any advice on that. So I will tell you what we did in Argentina that may or may not work here. You need to find out what it works here. So regarding wildlife, when we reintroduce species in these big areas, besides like restoring a complete and functional ecosystem, also what we do is we develop spectacles of abundant and observable wildlife. If you go to Iberá or you go to Impenetrable, this is something common. You see javelinas, you see capybaras, you see caimans, you see marsh deer, and we hope in the future we will also see jaguars like is happening in Pantanal. So this is very important for the economic model, to develop these spectacles of observable and abundant wildlife. And then the third part of the model is the economic part. So in the places where we work, we start in places where we have like marginal economical activities. We have cattle ranching in places that are not so good for cattle ranching. They are kind of marginal. Or sometimes we have logging, but all the activities are the extraction of natural resources. And we try to change that activities, or at least complement them, with high-quality nature tourism experience led by locals. So the kind of activities that we develop is like, for example, in Iberá, swimming with horses, yeah, with the locals, or go in a canoe pulled by a horse, or do long hikings or long canoeing or kayaking, in which the locals are the ones that know the place. Yeah, so that is very, very important. And the locals, they don't have land. They live in small towns and they don't have land. So if you don't give public access to the park, they cannot do this because they don't have a place where to do it. Maybe they can do it on a private reserve, on a cattle ranches that start to work with tourism, but in those places they will always be employees, never entrepreneurs. They will not run their own business. And we want the locals to have the possibility to become entrepreneurs. Not only guys, but then some others will recover traditional recipes, they will become cooks to offer to the tourists traditional meals, or they recover traditional handicraft techniques and they sell those products, or they build like a small room in their houses to receive tourists. So we train them to do that, to develop that. The locals, they never receive tourists, and they were also never tourists. So they don't know how to do it, but of course they can learn. So, and then the activities, the nature tourism activities that we develop, they are based on wildlife watching. It's not landscapes or scenery, so it's this. So when the tourists come to see this, they need of the locals, because the locals are the ones that can track wildlife. And this way we build social support to bring back the species, because locals see wildlife as a source of job, as job creation, because tourists come. And this is how we build social support that then turns into political support, to pass the law to create the big park or to get the permit to reintroduce jaguars. So that is very important in our model. So in Iberá, we develop 10 gateways with public use, yeah? So these gateways, they are entrance to the park, public use entrance that are linked to the 10 communities that are surrounding Iberá. So now the main activity, economic activity in most of these small towns is nature tourism based on wildlife watching. So that is very important. And in Iberá now we have around 10,000 entrepreneurs by nature. We call them like that. Different people that are offering guided activities, or food, or artisans, or whatever. And then by doing that, this is the fourth part of the model, that is the community impact, but not economic. But because I think here is kind of the same, because all the local cultures were developed in a very close link with nature. So when you start to lose nature, you lose culture. And when you recover these charismatic species like the jaguar, you start to recover culture also. So you see the textiles there, they start again to do the spot of the jaguars that they sell to the tourists, or the traditional recipes that I was mentioning, or the handicraft. Even the carnivals. In Corrientes province, the carnival are as popular as in Brazil. So now there are some like groups in this carnival that they are using again the customs of the jaguar, something that was lost, or the name of some small towns that they had as part of their name the Jaguar word, and they didn't use it anymore because the Jaguar was gone, so it was gone part of the name of the city, and now that the Jaguar is back, again they call it Conception of the Jaguar place, the name of the town. So by doing that, you recover you recover the culture, the identity, and the pride for the land, because tourists are coming to see their territory, what they have to offer. And we call this model, this four-step model, the economy of nature. This is the translation. In Spanish, we call it producción de naturaleza, like we produce nature. And how we explain? We have a territory where we produce, as others have a cattle ranch or a place for forestry, we have a park open to the public with public use infrastructure. Yeah, this is our territory for production. And instead of producing cattle or pines or whatever, we produce wildlife. We produce jaguars, capybaras, I don't know, pumas in the south, giant anteaters. And by doing that, we restore complete and functional ecosystems, and we develop these spectacles of observable wildlife. And who harvests these productions? Like, if you have cattle, you sell the meat or the leather or the milk, I don't know. The ones that harvest this production is local people through nature tourism activities. Yeah, that's the one that get the benefits of this production. And by doing so, you also recover the well-being of the communities, as we say, the identity, the pride. And for us, this was key, because this is conservation, really. It's a way of doing conservation, but how you call it is how people understand it or accept it. Because the ones that make decisions for conservation is not conservationists like us. It's politicians or business people or even ranchers. And when you talk of conservation, they don't like that word too much, because it's like getting rid of people outside of the territory or not using the land or going against production. But this way we say we don't come here against production. We come here with another type of production to complement what is done in the territory. And I want to show you this map. This is a map of Corrientes province done by the government. The government, they are indicating here with different icons the different type of productions that you have in the province. The head of a cow for cattle, the pine for forestry. And then if you can see here, they have an icon with the face of a jaguar to say here that this is Iberá, there we produce nature, or this is the economy of nature. And this is really high quality conservation. And when the government start to speak with your words, everything goes much faster. Yeah, and that, no, but that is really, for us, that changed everything. Even in Corrientes, they presume to be leaders in producción de naturaleza, that they invented this. And all the governors, the senators, they all talk about nature production and bringing back the jaguar under this model. Yeah, so that's how we get the politicians to give us the permits, and that allowed us to create this big park and to release the first jaguar, as I said, in 2021, January. And this is a short video of 1 minute to show the release of the first female with 2 calves in Iberá after 70 years of absence. And always with the government. So in this video, you can see also about all this model of the economy of nature, yeah, communities, tourism, the pride, the culture, the identity. So, and then to finish, this is what we are imagining for the future. So this is a video that was made with a cell phone in the Paraná River, that is the border between Argentina and Paraguay. It was made by a group of Brazilian fishermen that were fishing in the river, and they filmed this. So this is one of the jaguars. Is a young male of 1 year and 3 months that dispersed from Iberá. He was one of the wild male that was born free in the Iberá population. Yeah. So then we started to think that we need like to go one step forward and go out from the protected areas. The jaguars were showing us what we need to do in the future. Now we need to go out because the Iberá population is thriving. The jaguars are going to different parts of the park, but also outside the park, including cattle ranches. So we started to think, to work. This is the northern part of Argentina, and you can see here, this is Argentina. You can see here also Paraguay, the southeastern Brazil, and then Bolivia. And we are like connected by big rivers. The Paraná River, where we just saw the jaguar that borns in Brazil, the Bermejo River, the Paraguay River, the Iguazu River. So it's like this part of South America is connected by the Paraná Basin, that is the second biggest basin of South America. And this here you have in green color, this was the past distribution of the jaguar in this area. And this is what remains. So almost nothing of what we had. And in Argentina, as you can see, we have this population here. So we have this population here that is like an island of jaguars in the northeast, in the border with Brazil. And then this other population here in the cloud forest of the Andes in the northwest. These populations are connected through rivers, but it's 1,500 kilometers away, so very, very far away. So there's no jaguar that can move such a distance in a place that there's also some threats. But now we have in the middle 2 new breeding populations, one in Iberá and one in El Impenetrable. So we are starting to like shrink those distances. So now we have here like 250 kilometers, there we have like 450. So it's still a long distance, but it's getting closer. So now that, for example, the Iberá population is going so well, and we expect the Impenetrable population to be like the same in the next years, we can take jaguars from here and translocate them to other places along the river to build new stepping stones with breeding populations of jaguar. So we even shorten more the distances, and then when a male like the one that we saw in the video starts to disperse, has a chance to find a breeding population where he can stay. So I was saying that this is where we still have some population of jaguars, or that one. That is like the Northern Jaguar project in Mexico, in Sonora. And this is the same situation that you have here in southern United States, some males but no females. And this is starting from zero, like the Mongolian mountains to the north. So, I mean, the future agenda for us is try to connect these populations and engage Paraguay, Brazil, and Bolivia to do like the same. So this is how we can restore jaguar population in a sustainable way. So we imagine like this, corridors along rivers with stepping stones where jaguars can move from one place to another. So the future agenda of jaguar, besides building these new stepping stones, is also working a lot with coexistence and connectivity along the rivers, where there's no such a formal protection, like, for example, in Iberá or El Impenetrable. And this is a video that tells this idea for the future. Chris Tompkins will be like the godmother of this idea, and this is like the future agenda for the next 20 years for us.
You know, I'm reminded that whenever you have success with something, especially when it comes to rewilding, you have no choice but to keep going and expanding the boundaries of what's what's possible.
We have come a long way to find a new path, not the highway leading to a planet of hollow shapes, to a stage with no actors, but a different path leading to a world of wholeness and symbiotic play, a world of beauty, a path signaled by the tracks, the flight, the roar of those who have returned from the brink of extinction. The time has come for taking the next big step in rewilding South America. During the last 20 years, Iberá was successfully revitalized through the reintroduction and translocation of keystone species, such as top predators, big herbivores, and seed dispersers. Today it has become a pulsing heart flowing upstream through the Bermejo River to the west, where the dry Chaco forest climbs until reaching the misty sub-Andean streams, to the Paraguay basin, where the undulating waters meet the flooded jungles of Pantanal, and up the upper Paraná River, whose rapids spin until arriving at the breathtaking spectacle of the Iguazu Falls. A South American corridor will harness the natural role of rivers as wildlife bridges. The corridor will connect complete and fully functioning ecosystems by establishing populations of endangered species. Most importantly, it will build strong transboundary partnerships, stretching through and beyond the horizons of northern Argentina to Bolivia, Paraguay, and Brazil. This is more than an act of resistance to the current trend of extinction. This is a quest for resilience, a journey forward into nature, a fund for permanent rewilding. Together we can weave back the wild fabric that once held South America as one.
And you are also connected by rivers here, so the situation is kind of very similar. So yeah, well, that was all. Thank you very much.